Imagine this. Your fiancé. The woman you've been with for 4 years. The woman you're about to marry in 3 months. She sends you a text message. I found someone else. Deal with it.
No build-up. No conversation. No apology.
Just dismissal. Most men would have begged, argued, called 100 times. This man? He replied with one word. Finally. Finally. And then he logged into every single account he had been funding for her, and he turned them off.
One. Bye.
3 days later, her lawyer started calling him nonstop. And that new guy she left him for vanished like he never existed. This is one of the most satisfying stories I have ever covered. Let's get into it. What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, we cover the most insane Reddit stories on the internet. Relationship drama, revenge, entitled people getting exactly what they deserve. And today's story? I'm not gonna lie, I had to read this 3 times. Not because it was confusing, because every single paragraph, something new unravels. This is not your typical breakup story. This is a man who responded to disrespect with absolute precision.
No yelling.
No drama. Just quiet, calculated consequences. And I need you to hear every detail, because the way this unfolds is art. But first, you need the full backstory, because without context, you won't understand why his response was so devastating. So Opie starts by introducing himself. He's 36 years old, works in finance, stable career, the kind of guy who pays his bills on time and doesn't make a scene. And I want you to hold on to that word.
Precise.
Because that becomes important later. Opie says he's been with his fiancée for 4 years, engaged for 8 months, wedding planned for early summer, venue booked, deposits paid, guest list mostly finalized. From the outside, everything looked stable. Inside the relationship, it was more like managed chaos that I kept mistaking for confidence. Okay, I need to pause here for a second. That line right there? That's one of the most honest things I've ever read in a Reddit post. Managed chaos that I kept mistaking for confidence. That's not something someone writes casually. That's hindsight. That's someone who has already done the math and realized the equation never added up. Now, let's talk about what this relationship actually looked like day to day. Because this is where you start to see the pattern. Opie describes his fiancée as having a sharp personality.
Direct. Cutting.
The kind of person who calls it honesty when it's really just impatience.
I mean, think about that.
We all know someone like this, right? Someone who says terrible things and then hides behind the word honest. Like cruelty is a personality trait you're supposed to admire. He says early on he told himself it was part of the appeal. She was decisive. She knew what she wanted. She didn't sugarcoat. But over time, that sharpness turned outward.
Tore him.
Small digs dressed up as jokes. Comments about how my job was safe, but boring. How her friends' partners were more exciting. How I should be grateful she chose me. You should be grateful she chose you. Let that sink in. She actually said that. To the man who was funding her entire life. The audacity. And speaking of funding her life, here's the thing. Here's what makes this story go from bad breakup to nuclear detonation. Opie was paying for everything. And I don't mean he was splitting costs. I don't mean they went 50-50. I mean this man was the entire financial infrastructure of her existence.
Rent.
Utilities. Insurance. Streaming subscriptions. Groceries. Phone plan. Gym membership. Car insurance. Roadside assistance. Credit card she used for emergencies. Her contribution? She contributes sporadically when freelance work is good. Sporadically. That's a polite way of saying almost never. Now, keep all of this in your head. Every single account. Every single bill. Every single subscription. Because in about 10 minutes, you're going to watch this man turn them all off like a light switch. But he accepted it. He says it clearly. I did not love that setup. But I accepted it because we were building toward marriage. See, that's the thing about good men. They compromise. They absorb discomfort. They tell themselves it's temporary. That marriage will fix the imbalance. That once we're official, things will shift. But here's what OP didn't realize yet. She wasn't building toward anything. She was consuming. And the moment she found something more exciting, she dropped him like a subscription she forgot to cancel.
All right.
Now we get to the moment. The text message. The 6 words that detonated everything. OP says it was a regular workday. He was at the office. Nothing unusual. And then his phone lit up. One text message from his fiancée.
No build-up.
No previous argument. No warning. I found someone else. Deal with it. Read that again. I found someone else. Deal with it.
No apology. No explanation. No.
We need to talk.
No.
I'm sorry, this isn't working. Just deal with it. I want you to understand the level of contempt in that message. She didn't even think he deserved a conversation. For years, 8 months of engagement, a wedding 3 months away, and she sends 6 words like she's canceling a dentist appointment. But here's what OP says next. And this is where I knew this story was going to be different. What surprised me was not the betrayal. In hindsight, the signs were there. What surprised me was the tone. Casual. Almost smug. Like she expected me to react emotionally.
Beg.
Argue. Ask questions. She expected him to beg. Think about that. She sent that message fully believing that he would fall apart. Call her crying. Ask what he did wrong. Promise to change. Maybe even accept it and stick around. That's not a breakup text. That's a power move. She was testing how much control she had. And she was so confident in that control, she didn't even bother being gentle. But she miscalculated. Badly. Because this man did not beg, did not argue, did not call. He picked up his phone, typed 1 word, and sent it. Finally. Finally. Not how could you? Not who is he? Not can we talk about this? Just finally. That 1 word told her everything. It told her he wasn't surprised. It told her he wasn't devastated. It told her he had been waiting for this. That he was relieved. I'm not gonna lie, when I read that, I actually said, "Oh my God," out loud. Because you could feel the shift in power. She sent that text thinking she held all the cards. And with 1 word, he flipped the entire table. But OP wasn't done. Not even close. Because after sending that reply, he didn't spiral. He didn't call his friends. He didn't pour a drink and stare at the wall. He spent the rest of that afternoon doing something she clearly had not considered. He opened his laptop. And he started shutting down her entire life. Now, before I walk you through exactly what he shut down, and trust me, the list is insane. If you're watching this and you're not subscribed yet, honestly, what are you doing? We cover stories like this every single day. The drama, the revenge, the karma.
Hit subscribe.
Turn on notifications so you never miss the next unhinged story. Okay, back to the shutdown. And oh my God, this man was surgical. Here's what OP says. And I'm quoting directly because the way he describes this is cold, controlled, almost clinical. I did not do it dramatically. I did not announce it. I did not threaten it. I just treated it like an administrative task that was overdue. An administrative task that was overdue. This man did not see this as revenge. He saw it as cleanup, like closing a file at work, like ending a project that should have been terminated months ago. And the list of what he shut down. Stay with me, because each one hits harder than the last. Number 1, the joint checking account. Here he routed his paycheck before the end of the business day, drained his contribution down to the exact amount that was legally his, left just enough to avoid overdrafts on anything already pending. I am not reckless. I am precise. Remember that word from earlier? Precise. This is what it looks like in action. He didn't clean the account out. He didn't leave her with nothing out of spite. He calculated down to the penny what was his and took exactly that. Nothing more, nothing less. Number 2, the phone plan, canceled on his end, ported his number to a new one that he controls. Her phone stayed active for about 6 hours, then service dropped. 6 hours. That's how long it took for the phone she used every day to become a brick. And she didn't even know it was happening until it was already done. Number 3, Streaming services. Logged out. Everywhere. Every device. No more Netflix. No more watching shows on his dime while texting the new guy.
Done.
Number 4. Cloud storage. Downgraded. All those photos. All those files. Gone from premium. Number 5. The gym membership. Froze automatically when the card on file declined. She probably found out the next time she tried to scan in. Sorry, ma'am. Your membership is inactive. Beautiful. Number 6. This one. This one is big. Car insurance. The policy was in his name. She was a listed driver. He removed her. Same with roadside assistance.
Removed.
Do you understand what this means? She is now driving a car with no insurance. If anything happens, she is on her own.
Completely.
And here's the thing that gets me. She probably didn't even know she was uninsured, because she never had to think about it.
He just handled it.
Quietly.
Consistently.
For years. And she never once stopped to appreciate that. She assumed it just existed. Like air. Number 7. The emergency credit card. The credit card she used for emergencies that he paid off every single month. Cancelled. Emergencies. We all know what that means. Sephora runs and restaurant dinners that somehow became monthly necessities. And finally, passwords. Every password tied to his identity. Email. Banking. Utilities.
Changed.
All of them. And here's what I respect most about how he handled this. He did not lock her out of the apartment. He specifically says that would have caused unnecessary legal noise. I simply packed a bag and stayed with a friend while I figured out the next step. This man did not throw a tantrum. He did not smash things. He did not change the locks and put her stuff on the curb. He removed himself from the equation. Quietly.
Cleanly.
Like pulling the pin from a grenade and walking away. Now, you're probably thinking, when did she notice? Because while he was doing all of this, she had no idea. She was out there living her life. Probably with the new guy. Probably feeling victorious. Until that evening, when her world started falling apart. One notification at a time. That night, she texted him again. And this time, the tone was very different. Why is my phone not working? Why won't the grocery order go through? Why won't the grocery order go through? She's asking the man she just dumped why her groceries won't order. And then she added this. This is immature and petty. Immature? Petty. You sent this man a text saying you found someone else and told him to deal with it, and when he stops paying your bills, he's the immature one. The entitlement in this woman is so astronomical, it should be studied by scientists. But OP? He did not respond. Not a word. And that silence, that deafening silence, is what set off the next phase. Because what happened over the next 72 hours was a masterclass in watching someone lose control when they realized their leverage was an illusion. The next day, she escalated. Multiple calls from unknown numbers. Emails accusing him of financial abuse. Messages alternating between insults and attempts at reason. And I want you to notice the pattern here, because it's textbook. First, it was confusion. Why isn't my phone working? Then anger. This is immature and petty. Then accusations. This is financial abuse. Then manipulation. She told me I was overreacting. She told me couples get through worse. She told me I was proving her point about my insecurity. Did you catch that? Proving her point about my insecurity. So let me get this straight. She cheats on him. She announces it via text. She tells him to deal with it. And when he walks away, she says his insecurity is the problem? That's not honesty. That's gaslighting. That is textbook, clinical, grade A gaslighting. There's actually a term for this in psychology. It's called DARVO.
Deny. Attack.
Reverse victim and offender. She denied any wrongdoing. She attacked his character. And she reversed the roles, making herself the victim and him the aggressor. But OP saw right through it. And you know what he did? Nothing. Absolute silence. He said not a single word. Then came day 3. And this is where it got legal. OP started getting calls from a number he didn't recognize. Local area code. Formal voicemails. Professional wording. That's when I realized she had shifted strategies. She had contacted a lawyer. And listen to how the lawyer framed this. Because the wording matters. He said he represented my fiancé in a domestic financial dispute and wanted to discuss urgent concerns about shared assets and abrupt withdrawal of support. Did you catch those words? Shared assets. Support. Those are loaded terms. Those are words that carry legal weight if you're married, if you have a joint lease, if there's a written agreement. But none of those things existed here. And OP, the man who works in finance, the man who is precise, he called back.
Once.
And what he said was devastating in its simplicity. I told him we were not married. I told him there was no joint lease. I told him there was no prenuptial agreement and no written expectation of ongoing financial support. I told him every account I closed was in my name and funded solely by me. And then he asked the question that ended the conversation. I asked him to clarify what legal basis he believed existed for his call. What legal basis exists for this call? That's not a question. That's a checkmate. And then Opie says something that tells you everything about how that call went. There was a pause. Not a dramatic one. A calculating one. That pause? That was the lawyer realizing he had only heard one side of the story. That was the lawyer doing the math in his head and coming up short. That was the lawyer understanding this was not leverage. This was noise. But it didn't stop there. Because when the legal angles started falling apart, she switched tactics again. That afternoon, she sent him a long email. And this one?
No insults. No bravado. No aggression.
She reframed everything. She said she never meant it that way. She said she was emotional. She said she assumed we would talk. She said my reaction was extreme and vindictive. Oh, so now she didn't mean it? Now she was just emotional? Now she assumed they would talk? Funny how deal with it became, I assumed we would discuss this the moment the consequences arrived. But here's the line that made everything click for OP. The line that told him exactly what this was really about. In that email, she listed expenses she believed he was responsible for covering, until she got back on her feet.
Rent.
Utilities.
Phone.
Groceries. Therapy. And then she used a phrase. Transitional support. Transitional support. She wants transitional support. From the man she just cheated on and dumped via text message. And that's when Opie says something that I think is the most important line in this entire story. This was not about heartbreak. This was about entitlement. Opie's response to that email was brief and final. The engagement is over. There will be no further financial support. All communication should go through your lawyer. Then he blocked her number. Again. And this is where the dominoes started falling.
Stern, 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 fast, Stern, Stern, Stern.
The lawyer called back. And this time, his tone had completely changed.
His tone had changed.
The lawyer called back sounding careful instead of confident. You can hear the shift just from reading it. First call? Domestic financial dispute. Shared assets. Second call? Do you have time to talk? He emailed his concerns instead. And the email was shorter than expected. No demands this time. Just questions. Clarifying questions about the lease. About the accounts. About whether he had ever promised continued support in writing. About whether any of the wedding expenses were refundable. That shift told Opie everything. The lawyer had looked at the actual situation. No marriage. No joint assets. No written promises. And he realized this wasn't leverage. This was noise. And I want to pause here for something important. An educational moment that a lot of people don't understand. In most jurisdictions, a fiancé or girlfriend has no legal right to spousal support or alimony. Those protections exist for married couples. If there's no marriage, no cohabitation agreement, no written contract, then one partner cannot legally demand that the other continue paying their bills after a breakup. Everything Opie canceled was in his name, funded by his money. Her being a beneficiary of his generosity did not create a legal obligation. It created comfort. And comfort is not a contract. Comfort is not a contract. Now, around the same time, she tried a different angle. Public pressure. She started posting on social media. Vague posts about abandonment, about betrayal, strong woman quotes, posts about men who can't handle honesty, stories about rebuilding after emotional abuse. Notice how her text message never appears in any of these posts. I found someone else deal with it. That part of the story just vanished from her narrative. She also sent flying monkeys, mutual friends, her cousin, an old coworker, all of them suddenly wanting to understand both sides. That phrase is always a tell. It never means neutrality. It means someone has been given a version that requires reinforcement. And Opie's response to all of this? The social media posts, the flying monkeys, the public pressure campaign. Silence. Silence does more damage to that strategy than any argument ever could. And that right there is something most people don't understand. When someone starts a smear campaign, your instinct is to defend yourself, to tell your side, to correct the record. But the moment you engage, you give them what they want. Ammunition, drama, a villain to point at. But silence? Silence is unbeatable. Because you can't argue with someone who isn't arguing back. You can't create a conflict when the other person has already left the building. And then she went after his family. She emailed his parents. Not to attack, not to accuse, to appeal. She wrote about how much she loved me, how confused she was, how she never meant for things to end like this, how she hoped they could talk sense into me. She went to his mother to try to get her to intervene. The woman who cheated, who announced it via text, who told him to deal with it, is now writing love letters to his parents. But here's how his mom handled it. My mother forwarded the email to me with a single line, asking if I was okay. I told her yes, and explained everything plainly.
No emotion.
Just facts. She replied that she was proud of me for standing firm, and that my father would have said the same thing.
Man.
That line got me. Your father would have said the same thing. That's a mother who raised her son right, who saw through the manipulation instantly, and who backed him without hesitation. And then the new guy. Let's talk about the new guy. The new guy. The one she left Opie for. The exciting upgrade. The reason she felt so confident sending that text. He vanished. I only know because she accused me of poisoning him against her. I had never spoken to him. He didn't need to speak to him. Because here's what happened. When she had Opie's financial safety net, she appeared confident. Independent.
Put together.
She could go out. Look good. Act like she had her life figured out. But when that safety net disappeared, the new guy met the real version. The version with no phone, no insurance,
No subscriptions.
no credit card.
No stability.
And he decided that wasn't his problem. The irony. She left Opie for this guy. And this guy did exactly what she did to Opie, except faster. Karma doesn't announce itself either. The lawyer made one final attempt. A letter. Drafted by her lawyer, but clearly driven by her panic. It outlined emotional reliance and implied expectations without making actual claims. It asked again for discussion. Emotional reliance. That's a legal Hail Mary. When you have no contracts, no marriage, no written agreements, you start throwing emotional language at the wall and hoping something sticks. Opie did not respond. 2 days later, the lawyer sent one final email.
Short.
Neutral. He said his client would not be pursuing the matter further and requested confirmation of item pickup times. That was it.
No apology. No acknowledgement.
Just retreat. The noise machine ran out of fuel. But the story doesn't end there, because she tried one more time. In person. Over a week after everything went quiet, Opie was coming home from work, and he saw a car parked down the block from his new place. She stepped out, walked toward him, acted like it was a coincidence, like she hadn't mapped out the timing, like she just happened to be in the neighborhood of his new apartment that she shouldn't even know the address of. And Opie says something interesting about how she looked. She looked smaller, not physically, energetically. The confidence was gone, replaced with urgency. That's such a powerful observation. The woman who sent deal with it with smug confidence 3 weeks ago now looked desperate. Same person, different circumstances. And suddenly the bravado evaporated. She started talking before he could say anything. Told him, She just wanted 5 minutes. Said she deserved that at least. Deserved. She deserved 5 minutes. After what she did. The entitlement doesn't stop even when she's begging. And Opie's response? I told her no. That surprised her more than anything else so far. She laughed once, like I was joking. She laughed. She genuinely could not process the word no. Because in 4 years, she had never heard it from him. Not really. Not in a way that stuck. Then she got frustrated. Then she got desperate. She said she had been angry. She did not expect me to actually walk away. She said she thought finally was sarcasm. Let that sink in. She assumed finally was a joke. She assumed he would calm down and they would talk it out. She assumed the safety net would always be there, no matter what she did. And then came the most honest thing she said in the entire story. She admitted she assumed I would calm down and we would talk it out. There it is. That's the confession. She never intended to leave him permanently. She wanted to test him. She wanted to show him she had options. She wanted to make him insecure, make him try harder, appreciate her more. It wasn't a breakup. It was a power play. The text wasn't honesty. It was manipulation. And it backfired catastrophically because she chose the one man who wouldn't play the game. She asked if they could start over. No pressure. Just talk. She said the other guy was a mistake. She said she realized what she lost. And Opie said something that I think should be framed and put on a wall. I told her I was not angry. And that was why the answer was no. I said trust does not reset because circumstances change. Trust does not reset because circumstances change. That is one of the most mature things I have ever read. On Reddit. In a book. Anywhere. She called him heartless. Said he was punishing her. And his response? Consequences are not punishment. They are alignment. He walked past her. Went inside. Did not slam the door. Did not look back. She texted him later that night. From a new number. Just one line. I never thought you would actually leave. I never thought you would actually leave. And that was the point. After that night, the noise stopped. Completely. No more posts. No more messages. No more indirect contact. The silence felt different this time. Not tense. Final. And here's where the story shifts from drama to something deeper. Something I think a lot of people need to hear. Opie says his expenses dropped immediately. He was spending less without even trying. No constant small drains. No surprise charges. No background stress. My account stabilized in a way I had not realized they were missing.
Think about that.
He didn't even realize how much financial stress he was carrying until it was gone. That's what happens when you're subsidizing someone else's entire life. The drain is so gradual, you don't notice it until the faucet shuts off. But the emotional aftermath? That surprised even him. I did not spiral. I did not miss her the way I thought I would. What I missed was the version of the future I had already outgrown. I'm not gonna lie, that line hit me. What I missed was the version of the future I had already outgrown. That's not a man in denial. That's a man who has clarity, who understands the difference between missing a person and missing a plan. Friends asked how he was holding up. He told them the truth. I was relieved. Not because the relationship ended, but because it ended cleanly. Through mutual friends, he heard fragments of what happened to her. She moved out, but not up.
Down.
Crashing with a friend. Selling items. Downsizing everything. Selling items she once mocked me for being frugal about. The irony. She used to mock him for being careful with money. For being frugal. For not being exciting enough with his spending.
And now?
She's selling things just to stay afloat. He canceled the wedding officially. Lost deposits. Took the financial hit. And his response? Money recovers faster than trust ever does. I consider it tuition. Tuition. He called the lost deposits tuition. Because he paid to learn a lesson before it cost him years instead of weeks. He moved into a smaller place. Closer to work. Quiet. His. I sleep better. I wake up without tension. She hasn't contacted him again. Not directly. Not indirectly. The silence stuck this time. Because there is nothing left to test.
No soft boundary.
No emotional backdoor. Just absence. Okay, let me break this story down, because there are layers here that go way beyond a breakup. Layer 1. Financial enmeshment. This is a real psychological concept. It happens when one partner becomes so financially dependent on the other that they lose their independent financial identity. She didn't just rely on him for money. She forgot what it was like to handle her own life.
Phone.
Insurance. Groceries.
Gym.
All of it ran through him. She stopped seeing these as his contributions and started seeing them as her baseline reality. That's why the shutdown was so devastating. He didn't take anything from her. He took back what was his. But to her, it felt like the ground disappeared. He didn't take from her. He reclaimed what was his. Layer 2. The power dynamic. She believed she had leverage. She believed that being the desired one in the relationship gave her the power to dictate terms. I found someone else. Deal with it. That's not a breakup. That's a negotiation. She was saying, I have options.
What are you going to do about it?
What she didn't realize is that the person paying all the bills always has the exit. She confused being wanted with being needed. And those are two very different things. Being wanted is not equal to being needed. Layer 3. The reaction pattern. Watch the cycle. Confusion. Anger. Legal threats. Gaslighting. Emotional manipulation. Public pressure. Family appeal. In-person confrontation. And finally acceptance. That's not random. That's the grief cycle mixed with narcissistic injury. She wasn't grieving the relationship. She was grieving the loss of control. She didn't grieve the relationship. She grieved the control. So, my verdict.
Was Opie cold?
Some people will say yes.
Was Opie calculated?
Absolutely.
Was Opie wrong?
Not even close. She ended the relationship. He ended the subsidies. Those two things are connected. You cannot discard the person and keep the benefits of the person. That's not how life works. And his own words say it best. I did not punish her. I stopped subsidizing disrespect. Love without respect is obligation. Obligation without choice is resentment. And he refused to live in that middle space.
All right.
I want to hear from you. Drop your verdict in the comments right now. Was Opie right to shut everything down? Or did he go too far? And I want to know, have you ever had that finally moment? That moment where someone showed you exactly who they were, and instead of arguing, you just felt clarity? Because I think a lot of people are stuck in relationships right now where they're subsidizing disrespect, where they're paying the bills and absorbing the insults and telling themselves it's building towards something. And maybe this story is the wake-up call. Maybe this is the reminder that consequences are not punishment. They're alignment. Comment below. I read every single one. And the best comments? I'll feature them in the next video. Alright, that's the story. And honestly, it's one of the best I've ever covered. If you're not subscribed, hit that button. We do this every day. Drop a like if this story made you feel something. And check out this video right here for another absolutely insane story. I'll see you there. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.